Thank you, Fred.
Yeah.
The Orange County Human Relations Council, more commonly known as OC Human Relations, is a private nonprofit 501c3 organization founded in 1991 for the purpose of developing and implementing proactive human relation programs in partnerships with schools, corporations, cities, foundations, and individuals. Our speaker today is Don Hahn, Director of Operations. He's been with Orange County Human Relations since 2001. Prior to that, he was the Hate Crime Prevention Program Coordinator who also responded to report hate crimes and hate incidents in the county. Don, welcome to Tustin-SantaAna Rotary, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, Mr. Calvert. Long time no see. It's nice to see you. Good to be here today. And I have this pride to hear the name Santa Ana and Tustin because I grew up here in Santa Ana. So the connection I have with Tustin was I served on Chief Serrano's advisory board for a few years before his retirement. And it was nice to be serving that in that connection, representing our agency. As Mr. Robin have shared that I've been with the agency for a little bit about 20 years, and my role have shifted from being a hate crime prevention specialist to now where I unfortunately do a lot of internal work as a director of operation. But I still do respond to hate crime and hate incidences to help my staff out. We have one staff that's actually assigned to do this work for the whole county. So you can imagine one person equal 3 million services if there's a call. So if it's okay with you, I'm gonna switch to share my screen real quick because I have PowerPoint that I prepared to share with you today. So there we go. Ooh, it's almost perfectly fit. Wow. So you see that Orange County Human Relations, we've been around the county for 30 years. We're going to be 30 years old this May. It's actually an offshoot from the Orange County Human Relations Commission, which was created 50 years ago by the Board of Supervisors. That commission still exists today. We do the contract in partnership to work with the county in terms of supporting the commission's work. So one of that work is helping the commission address hate crime and hate incidences in our county. And as a nonprofit, we have our own vision as well. And our vision was, we believe all people have the right to live free from discrimination and violence. So whatever that means, we try to respond either by programs or by being out there to assist the community here in Orange County. So I'm very humbled to have this opportunity to come and share with you the work that we do and something that I've been very passionate about in serving Orange County. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what is hate crime and hate incidents. So according to the California law 422.55, hate crime defined as is a criminal act committed in whole or in part because of the following or actual or perceived characteristic of someone, right? So you can see the list of the characteristic there, or in association with a person or group with one or more of these or actual perceived characteristic. So according to the California law, these are the example of the hate crime. So it could be assault, theft, threats, criminal damage, destruction of property, or murder. In the last 5 years, unfortunately, Orange County experienced it all. I remember in 2018, my first hate crime that I had to respond to was the murder of Blade Bernstein. and I had to reach out to his parents and express my condolences. So that was very tough for me. That was the first case that I've been doing this work that I actually had to reach out to the victim's family that has actually lost their life in Orange County. The larger number than hate crime was hate incidents. Now, what are the hate incidents? Hate incidents is a behavior that is motivated by hate or bias towards someone, again, either actual or perceived protected classes, right? Typically, this behavior are protected by our First Amendment, the right to freedom of expression. If someone, saying some racial slur towards someone in the park, in a public area, or even in front of their house, is protected by our First Amendment. That's the right of expression. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, but it's still protected. It's not a crime. Some of the examples are verbal abuse, like name calling, offensive jokes, harassment, verbally, bullying or intimidations, or even abusive phone call, hate mail, which is we've been getting that incident report quite a bit lately. Recently, a woman got a hate mail, a letter that was actually mailed to her home after her husband had passed. And the mail to her home was, we're glad such and such a name was, they have died, because then there'll be one less chink in our community. So, including online abuse, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever it is that people do nowadays, is still protected. Or circulating discriminatory literatures. Last week, we get a notice quite a bit of the Ku Klux Klan have been leaving their leaflet flyer in a couple of our community neighborhood in Orange County, which creating some intimidation for some of the residents. Either it's a hate crime or a hate incidents, the impact of both on the victims is recognized in two different levels. American Psychological Association have recognized that this kind of attack not only on one's physical self, but is also attack on one's very own identity, right? So just imagine that if you are, being attacked of who you are, that really messing with people on the level of psychological impact on things that, creating depressions, anxiety, distress, things that sometimes could elevate or escalate other mental health issues. Right? I'll give you an example. Years ago, I got a call from the sheriff department saying we're responding to a hate crime right now, and can you contact this woman who have a great distress because she doesn't know what to do with her children. Right? So when I call her, she was really distressed, under distress, because fearfully for her own children's safety. They were in junior high. They bought a home in Orange County over 20 something years ago. And one morning, before she took her kid to school, someone spray painted at their driveway with racial slur toward them as being Asian American. And of course, they don't know who did the crime overnight, but she was distressed because she was fearful for her children. And her word was, "This is our home. We feel most safe at home, but now our home is unsafe. So what do I tell my children?" Right? So things like that is very common when people experience hate crime or hate incidences. This is a chart that we have in the last 10 years. So in 2009, we have about 49 hate incidences reported to our agency, and about 77, right? And it was starting to decline just a little bit there. The lowest was in 2014, we have 40 cases of hate crime reported to our agency and 14 cases of hate incidents reported to us. In 2015, the hate incidents from 14 to 15, it started on a rising trend. So you see now in 2018, for example, there were 165 hate incidences reported to our agency and 67 hate crimes. Now, how do we collect this data? The people could report hate crime and hate incidents directly on our website or just call us. But most of our data are actually coming from law enforcement agency. So we have an infrastructure where we work in partnership with law enforcement, organizations, school district, and different other nonprofit that in our hate crime prevention network, like ADL, CARE, and Waymakers. And folks like that, they share the data when they receive them, and the LGBTQ Center, for example. So in 2019, I want to back up a little bit. Like I said, in the last 5 or 6 years, we're beginning to start seeing the rise in hate crime and trend, not just in Orange County, but nationally. So unfortunately, Orange County wasn't an exception to the rise in hate crime and hate incidences. So every year when we report our hate crime or we create a hate crime report for the county, we usually don't release that hate crime report until late August or early September. Now, we started asking all of our partners to submit the data. If they don't submit them on a monthly basis or on a case-by-case basis, we ask them to submit the data at the end of the year, December or early January. The deadline was actually mid-February for all the departments that we work with to collect the data. But the report take about 6 or 7 months to complete. And part of it was we spent a lot of time analyzing the trend, double checking our number with, for example, with each department or each partner that we have, and also double checking our number with the state. The Attorney General, excuse me, hate crime report usually come out in July, and so was the FBI report. So we double check our number with those and cross references with them. And every now and then, like I said, I've been with the agency for the last 20 years. And every now and then there was something that happened in either in Orange County or outside of Orange County that kind of shifted the data a little bit or a lot. For example, primary target for hate crime in Orange County are typically African-American community, Jewish community, anti-Semitic, right, and LGBTQ community. These 3 communities are usually the top 3 targeted group in Orange County. After 9/11, that also shifted. 9/11 and the shooting in San Bernardino that one year. It shifted our data just a little bit, and we have started seeing the increase in hate incidents and hate crime toward our Arab or Muslim perceived to be or identified community. The beginning of 2020, when the world experiencing this pandemic, and when the media started showing that the pandemic, the COVID-19 virus was starting in China, right? In this province in China. And a lot of media started spreading attention on that. And we're beginning to start receiving hate incidents report directly to our agency or to law enforcement that share the data with us on incidences where Asian American begin to receive some of these harassment. So if you look at this data of the trend in the last 5 years of hate incidences toward our Asian American in Orange County, In 2016 and 17, there were 3 cases only that reported to our agency. In 2018 and 19, each year also received 4 cases of hate incidents reported to our agency. But in 2020, we received 40 hate incident cases. So it actually went tenfold from 2019 to 2020. And this is a very raw number, actually. What that means is we haven't compared our 2020 number with the FBI report or the Attorney General's, California Attorney General's report yet, because their report hasn't come out yet. So this is a raw number for us. So that means that this is a trend that we begin to realize at the very beginning of 2020 that these hate incidents were correlating to COVID-19. For example, a man was at the McDonald's getting food for his kid in early January, and someone behind him started harassing him, start telling him like, go back to China and what, don't come to our country. And he was wondering like, why am I being harassed? I've been living here for a long time. And right before the guy leave, actually the staff asking the person to leave because he was harassing another customer. Right before he leave the store, he told the guys that, no, don't bring the virus to our country. You people are the one that brought the virus to our country. And he's making that connection between, oh, this pandemic really is going to impact, who we are. So instead of just talking about the numbers and the event or the unfortunate hate crime that we have, I do wanted to share a little bit of tools with you all today. And part of that is, how do we speak up against racism or hate? One of the first things you want to do, if it's safe to do so, is interrupting that. The way to interrupt is like, you could ask when someone made an offensive joke or make inappropriate comment, you could say, excuse me, can I clarify what I just heard from you? Those sort of the things that I put a hold on what the person thought of mine or what their intention is, right? The other way you could do is asking questions. Why do you feel that way? Why did it make you say that? Where did you get that information? So some of these questions could be a learning experience, right? In terms about learning, it's also people make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. Sometimes I say things I didn't mean to, right? So once people make mistake or unintentionally make mistake, it's the way to call them in. The way to call people in is, you could educate them. It's an educational opportunity. Things like, I like to share a different perspective, for example, or let me share my personal experiences, right? So one of the best way to do that is I have found was when I hear term or derogatory things that sometimes expressed to me, and I have received many of those over my lifetime here. Sometimes I just like to have dialogue with people, and the way to dialogue is to build understanding, right? So I welcome that. The other thing that we could do to speak up against hate and racism is to echo all the leadership and all the other effort that have been set before or for us. I know that after the murder of George Floyd, many cities have created a resolution. Many cities or corporations or companies have made statements, right? And part of that is sometimes we have to go beyond that statement by echoing the work that's already being done, the leadership that's already been set, to be an upstander against racism and bigotry. In 2017, we launched a campaign called No Hate. And part of that is to teach our younger generation to know what is hate crime or hate incidents, to understand it, and to change it, right? If you know what it is and you understand how it impacts our community, then we could change that. And I wholeheartedly believe that the reason why our number in 2018 and 19, some of those hate incidents were coming in kind of high is the possibility of that people are now reporting as well. Now, what can the community do to stop hate in its track? Is definitely to learn about it, right? To call and report. You know, we do all need all the help that we can get. Like I said, we have one staff that's assigned to do this work. If we don't know that it exists, we're not going to be able to help, right? Continue to create an environment where acceptance is the norm. Create an opportunity for a diverse group of people to come and have dialogue and have conversation. Mr. Colbert and I have met before because I was invited to other things that he was involved with. And I'm glad to be there to have that kind of dialogue. Maintain a respectful and inclusive environment in our school, in our community, and in our work and businesses. You know, be the model, right? Offer support to the victim to let them know that they are not alone. I, unfortunately, recently have called and offered that same support to a resident of Tustin last week. She was at a skate park and she was attacked because of who she was. So when I called her, she was very vulnerable. I mean, my voice might be a little shaky because I'm trying to understand and empathize with her, because she was so shaken by the event. And by the time I reached out to her, it was the second day she came out of the hospital already. This guy attacked her, fractured her ankle, you know, because of who she was or who she is. So I always oftentimes have to tell people, you know, we're here as Orange County, as an agency, as a community, and they're not alone, right? When the time they felt that they're being attacked, she felt she was alone. And she literally told me, Don, I'm almost at the breaking point, and I'm glad you called. Because she was at the breaking point to go into depression. And that was very hard for me to hear. So if you are the victim of hate crime, please report. You know, if it's safe to do so, please call the police, call us, call someone for help. You know, obtain medical attention, leave all the evidence or their place as is, because it become an investigative, you know, crime scene, right? Document if it's, you know, when it's safe for you to do so. Get the name of the witness, get the name of the other victims, get the name of someone that helped. Right? If it's possible, get the description of the perpetrator. And this is our direct line, you know, 714-480-6580, or you could go to our website to report the hate crime. It is confidential, and you could anonymously report hate crime and hate incidents. You don't have to give your name. You know, our whole goal is to be here to help. We also recognize that not everyone feel comfortable to call the police. We could be that link if you want to, right? The whole point is for us to connect with resources. This is a sample of our website. If you get on our website right here on this link, this blue link, that's the link that you actually could fill out the form. And then there's a button at the end that said, ask, would you like to be contacted, or would the person like to be contacted? You click yes or no. Some people just want to report, especially with hate incidents, some people just report that it happened to them. If it is a crime and it hasn't been reported to the police, we usually ask the person or try to encourage the person that, hey, we'll accompany you, you know, to report this if you feel unsafe, right? So I wanted to stop here, and I wanted to ask you if you have any questions for me, or any comments, or anything that I could answer at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I want to thank you very much for this presentation. I'd like to think that our Rotary district should avail themselves to this and getting more information out. I think it's so important right now to have the conversations, and the timing. I guess we're at a crossroads where a lot of people are talking about it. The other thing I wanted to say is, years ago, I was a small business commissioner in LA, and it was the time of the millennium, and everybody was wondering about New Year's and what would happen with our computers. And I was in a number of focus groups, and I said, to me, I think the biggest issue is, how are we going to handle in the 21st century all the ethnic diversity? And they looked at me like I was a Martian, bringing that kind of subject up. But it's real. And I wasn't even aware of your organization. And thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I know we were told many times that we were one of the best kept secret in Lawrence County, and I hope we're no longer being that. So, Mr. Fink?
A question for you. The statistics look pretty bad in 2020. What does 2021 look like? Is it on the same track, or has it slowed down at all?
Unfortunately, I would have to say no, especially for the hate and incidences against our Asian American community or Asian community. As I mentioned, the young lady that I reached out to at your city in Tustin, she was attacked because she was perceived or identified to be Korean American. And I just got a call this morning of someone that's being harassed. So we would get cases like that almost on a daily basis. We thought it was going to slow down, but it hasn't, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad because the more the media picked it up, the more it escalated things. So that's just the way I see it.
So that brings up kind of a good point. Is I see that that graph that you showed, which is a stunning graph to show how much that the incidents have increased, made me think of a couple of things. One is, do you think, what part do you see the media and social media playing in the hate incidents? And then the second question that I have is the recordings of hate incidents that you have, are they based on reports, or are those based on actually verified incidents of hate, or are just people more sensitive to it? I mean, is that also amplifying? So 2 parts.
The crime was both actually report. The crime is actually verified. The incidents, when people say, hey, I was calling, someone called me name, that is a report. You don't need to really be saying, how do I verify hate incidences? But if it's a crime, we usually cross-check that with law enforcement.
So the crime is correlated to the actual event that occurred. And
yes, sir. And also the incident as well, because we take the incident report as it's come in, the way it is. So for example, this morning when I got the report that young woman was at the bus stop and someone harassed her and calling her name and tell her to go back to her country. And that is a racially motivated, and it was a harassment, verbally.
yeah. So do you think that social media has played a part in either amplifying it or making people more sensitive to it? Both?
Both. Definitely people become more aware and being hypersensitive to it in a way that, let me give a recent example. I'm going to talk a little bit about Stop Asian Hate, right? So the primary example of that is we start seeing the media start covering about elderly Asian folks are being attacked, from San Francisco all the way down to San Diego. And when the media get a hold of that, of course, it gone viral in a sense. And part of that is now it also bringing hypersensitivity to the Asian American community. For example, my own family member who usually doesn't talk about hate and hate crime, the job that I've been doing for a decade or so, all of a sudden they would reach out and say, hey, should we worry about this, right? Should we worry about my 76-year-old brother going to the grocery store, for example, and things like that. So they do become aware, become a little bit hypersensitive around it. But unfortunately, the number has been coming in and it hasn't slowed down at all.
Yeah, my wife is Chinese, my kids are Chinese, and they're in middle school, and I can tell you from their point of view, they see a lot more incidences of people reporting and being very sensitive about it, but they don't feel that there's been a marked kind of increase in we would call them incidences, but things like saying names or calling out race or that kind of stuff. On the flip side of that, my 14-year-old son, he uses it to his advantage. He's on the basketball team in the school, and he'll say, "Pass the ball to me, or you're a racist." And I mean, he jokes about that stuff. And although that might be humorous at the time, I think what's happening is that they're desensitizing themselves to actual incidents, and I'm kind of concerned about that.
Or normalizing it, right? Because
Right.
you experience it so often, you're just normalizing it. I was working with a school, and there was a hate crime against a school in the South County, and so I spent some time working with this group of teachers. And one day, one of the teachers said, I walked by a bench on our campus and I saw a swastika carved on it. So she asked her class, she was like, how many of you who identify yourself as Jewish American, raise your hand. So many of her students raised their hand. How many of you seen that swastika that was carved on such and such bench? And they all raised their hand. And she's like, why didn't you report that to me or to someone? They said, like, we just normalize it. This kind of thing, we experience it all the time. We experience jokes like, what's the difference between the Jews and pizza? Nothing. They both went into the oven. Things like that is very, very, it's very hard for even young people to even report that. So I'm sorry, Mr. Fink. I know you have your hands up for a while.
No, that's okay. My question was about reporting an incident versus a hate crime, and I took down, well, and maybe you can put the slide back up later, but I put the number. I went online and looked at the number and put it in my phone, so I had it. But I'm kind of wondering, and I've heard about the incident in Tustin where the woman was beaten, but a lesser situation, that's a hate crime, right? But a lesser situation of a hate incident where somebody is, harassed at a McDonald's, like you talked about, I would take it, you would report that into the OC Human Relations number, but sort of what's the follow-up? What happens with that type of a situation where there's just an incident and not a hate crime?
For law enforcement perspective, there's not a lot they could do because it's not a crime. So law enforcement is very focusing on if this is a crime. For our agency, for example, some people just want to be connected to someone that, hey, I just want to report this because it happened to me. I remember I have a friend, well, I still have, she's still my friend. She was harassed at the grocery store, and she's a transgender woman. She was afraid to even report that. And one day we were in the training together, her wife said, Shirley, you gotta report that, right? And I go, report what? So I have a chance to sit down with her, and she said, I was so ashamed, I didn't know what to say, and I didn't even know how to report. So that being said, just show me that, show us that sometimes people didn't want to report, or when they do report, they were afraid that nothing's being done. And that is a big barrier for folks that don't want to report hate incidences. They just either move on or normalizing it. For us, if the person said, hey, beyond just hearing that we're not alone, or I need more support, we do work with Waymakers. And Waymaker is actually a victim assistance services in our county, one of the agency. We connected to them, to Waymakers. If they say, hey, we wanted to be connected more to the community we identify with, then we'll connect them to that resources. That's our goal. Yes, sir, Ms. Middleton. You're muted, sir. You still have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was just going to ask you, you've already reported on the one, and that was the assault of the young lady over in the Tustin Legacy Park.
Yes, sir.
Just prior to that, I think I've got my timing right. It might just be the opposite. There was the Olympic athlete training in park over in Orange, who was harassed. And I was just kind of wondering, did your office receive direct reports from both parties, recognizing you've got your partnerships that also report, as well as the police department if it rises to the level of an assault?
Yes, sir.
And I was just curious, were those two incidents or situations reported directly to the Orange County Human Relations Division?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner?
So the one at Legacy Park, I actually got a call from a captain from Tustin PD to say,
Okay.
we're responding to this and I need you to reach out to the person. The one in Orange Park, someone got a hold of it on social media because she posted on social media, and
Okay.
they connected us to that. Sometimes it
I see.
doesn't have to be the person or the police department to connect us directly.
Okay.
Oftentimes the hate incidents are the stuff that other people reported to us, or themselves.
Sure. Thank you.
And by the way, the person who harassed that Olympian, U.S. Olympian, karate sport, the same person went on and attacked a elderly Korean couple, and he got arrested.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, does anybody else have any more questions?
I have one. Don, when you said you make contact with the victim, what exactly do you say to them? What exactly do you try to do for them in terms of they're distressed, they're upset? What is it you do to help them through that?
Yes, sir. So first thing when I give them a call, I let them know that, either they requested or the police department or someone have requested that I reach out to them on behalf of Orange County Human Relations Commission. And the goal is to let them know that, first of all, I'm sorry, this is the hate crime that happened to you. I'm sorry that you were the targeted victim, and we want to let you know that you're not alone. What can I do to help? And typically, oftentimes the person would usually ask me, like, why me? What did I do wrong? And my answer to them would be, I don't know why you, but you did not do anything wrong. So I want you to know that Orange County, unfortunately, do have hate crime that happen or hate instances, but it's not the norms of our county. There are a lot of good people in our county that will be here to support you with resources if you choose to or want to. Oftentimes people just glad that we call, and they usually thank us, and they end it right there, say, I'm fine, I can move on. But if they do need help and need support, we try to match them with the support that they need as close as possible.
Well, Don, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
It wasn't exactly a hate crime, but there were two ladies outside the Ace Hardware store in Novato, California, where I now live. and they were signing up people or helping people sign up for the COVID vaccines. And I saw them on my way in, and on the way out, I saw this lady, kind of a high voice, talking to them and didn't have a mask on, and she was with some man, didn't have a mask on. And I quickly realized that they were harassing the ladies about something about signing people up for COVID, which not exactly a hate crime, but it was still, harassing people for no good reason anyway. So I took out my phone and started recording it. And so, a few minutes, the lady noticed it, turned over at me and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm recording you." And she said, "What are you doing that for?" I said, "I'm going to put it on YouTube. Let people laugh at you." So that might be a way to, and the lady left shortly after that. She quit and went away. But, I don't know if that's going to cool down the situation, but, my feeling is if you see something, say something and do something, and don't just like that one place in New York where they locked the door, where the lady was getting beaten up on the sidewalk, and the doorman and I don't know if it was a store or an apartment building, but they locked the door so that not going to render aid or even give the person a chance to escape. So I mean, we can't let this go on unnoticed. We have to say something. We have to do something. We have to yell. We have to, we have to be there. I mean, it's just it's not right, and we know it. Period.
Well, thank you for doing that, but I do want to share that please don't do anything unless you feel safe to do so, right? I'm glad that you felt safe to do that, Mr. Anderson, but I would highly encourage that even if you want to do something and you don't feel safe to do so, you could ask someone for help. For example, if you're at the grocery store and you don't want to be the person that the attention could turn towards you, right? It could escalate and turn towards you. You could ask the store manager or the cashier to help. If I often tell this to people, if you're at a public transportation, for example, if you're in the bus, ask the bus driver for help. Ask someone who is in control of that situation or that environment to help. You don't have to be the one doing that as well, right? So someone else Helen, do you have a question?
Well, I have a couple just comments. This past week, I read a book by Jodi Picoult, Small Great Things. It's a quote from Martin Luther King that she used on her book. And it is a very profound book for this time of what's going on. I recommend it to everybody to read it because it will open up your eyes to a lot of racism and some that each of us perhaps hold. And dialogue is the most important thing. And the other thing is, do you have enough people on your staff to do this? This is an enormous issue for social justice for all of us.
We don't. So that being said, we're trying to ask our Board of Supervisors, because the Board of Supervisors last month took a resolution to anti-hate, anti-discrimination, anti-racism in Orange County. We're in the process of asking Board of Supervisors to increase some funding for our agency so we could hire more people to help us, our staff. In fact, you all could get involved because starting tomorrow morning, the commission actually going to take a public hearing on how to stop hate in our county. And please join us. There's going to be 4 different sessions that community could provide input. And with that input, the commission, after the listening session, the commission actually going to take that and report that to the Board of Supervisors directly. So, Mr. Robin, I'll send you the link and then you can share with the group. And then if people are available, please join us, to provide your comment or to provide your input to the commission.
Thank you.
All right, are there any more comments or questions or suggestions?
I do have one comment. It's not even a comment. He joined us after we got started, but I want to introduce and welcome Al Murray. Al is wow, he's done so much. He's a retired Irvine police officer. He's a former city council member 2 terms. He's a former mayor of Tustin and current policy advisor to Supervisor Wagner. And but most importantly to Lori and I, he's our neighbor 2 houses down and a family friend. So welcome, Al.
Yes, thanks, Al. Do you have any questions of our speaker, either you or Lee Fink? Hearing nothing. Okay, well, thank you, Don, for making that presentation, and thank you, Richard, for lining up this program. You've once again outdone yourself in getting our best speakers we could possibly have, and I really appreciate it. And I think all the Rotary members appreciate the fine speakers you've had, and particularly today's speaker, Don, from the Orange County Human Relations. I really enjoyed your presentation. It's quite frankly shocking. Let's see what the next 4 years bring, and hopefully we get some more genteel leadership from the East Coast. In any event, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to gong the bell and deem the Rotary meeting over. Anybody have any questions, comments, announcements, or suggestions? In that case, we will meet again next week, same time, same bat time, same bat station. I will see you all later.